What up, what up, what up? Daniel Augustin here. I want to do an instant reaction on the Florida Gators getting the dub today versus the Mississippi State Bulldogs, 45-28. I'm happy that the Gators got the win. They're now officially 2-2. Looking forward to checking out Billy Napier's post-game conference. You get a lot of information that you don't necessarily see on the field or get in any reports throughout the week. So I'm really interested to see that. Getting a win can sometimes give a sense of perfume, a sense of cologne, but you can't really hide the musk. Still can't hide the musk on this team. Giving up 28 points to the Mississippi State Bulldogs, I think, is unacceptable. I think the fact that the Gators are 2-2 is sad, to be quite honest. I think at this point they should at least be 3-1. I think they could have at least gotten 3 wins as opposed to the 2-2. They're getting ready to get into the really toughest part of their schedule. And the fact that they're only 500 at this point lets you know what kind of team they are because they have not played the best teams thus far. So for them to already be 500 right now, I think that means that there's trouble coming down the pipe. So I'm going to get into some stats real quick first, just to give an overview of what I saw and what the tape says. So the Gators were able to put up 503 total yards in this game. Offense was working. Things were flowing on the offensive side of the ball. Don't mind my son. He's just going to try to get in and say his piece as well because he was watching too. So 503 total yards of offense for the Florida Gators. They threw the ball for 277 yards, ran the ball for 226. Averaged 7.9 yards per play. That's damn good. All right, that's damn good. You really can't argue with what they did on offense. We put up 503 total yards. That's great, but we gave up 480. We threw the ball for 277 yards, but we gave up 240 yards in the air. We ran the ball for 226 yards, but we gave up 240 yards on the ground. For starters, I want to say that I think Billy Napier going back and forth between Mertz and DJ Lagway, I think that's a mistake. One of the reasons why he says that he's doing that is because I don't want the guys to be looking over their shoulder or anything like that. I think that's foolish. I think it's not even about what I think. DJ is a freshman. He's a freshman, and he was coming in at a time where we have a sixth-year senior in the lineup. Mertz is probably not even taking classes at this point because he's been in college so long. So I think it's highly expected that he's not really going to start. So I don't think there's any need to force him into the game. Getting him reps is good, but I think you will get him reps once Mertz and the offense gets rolling. You have a 4 or 5 touchdown lead. You're deep in the third quarter. Early in the fourth quarter, you get DJ in there. DJ gets 3 or 4 possessions, and now he gets his reps. But instead, Billy's kind of forcing him in there a little bit, and I think there might be something where it's more so forcing him in there for the sake of his own job. Because if Billy does leave, when Billy does leave, Billy, upon him being let go, wherever he goes, there's the idea that, hey, I'm the coach that gave you a run at the University of Florida. Do you want to come with me? So there's that. And I think him getting DJ reps is kind of him trying to stay in DJ and his family's good graces. Call me crazy if you want to. You're more than welcome to talk about it in the comments if you want to. But I think it's clear that he's forcing him in the lineup. He's taking Mertz out of the game after Graham scores a touchdown, and this offense has been seeking an identity. If Graham starts getting the ball rolling, that means that you might get closer to your identity. So to get DJ into the game right afterwards, now you don't really have an identity. You're kind of just going back and forth between quarterback to quarterback. Every quarterback there's a difference between what plays they like in whatever your offensive scheme is. So you're not really hammering down what it is your team does well when you're going from this guy to that guy. So I think when he's going back and forth like that, it's not really helping the team. It worked today, but it works because you're playing against the Mississippi State Bulldogs. All right. They are the lowest tier in the SEC conference. I think just seeing how Billy is deciding, and it's hard because, coming here and ragging on Billy after a win is kind of like, damn, how you do that? How you rag on Billy after a win? I think it's easy to come for Billy after a win because you can still see what the team is and isn't doing if they are or aren't prepared. Now, you're playing against the Mississippi State Bulldogs. The Gators' best games this season have come against the Mississippi State Bulldogs and the Sanford Bulldogs. Is that their name, if I'm not mistaken? Both of their best games have come against lower-tier competition. Didn't get the guys ready to play against Texas A&M. Didn't get the guys ready to play against Miami when you really needed it. Both of those games against Texas A&M and Miami, I wholeheartedly believe that the Gators could have competed in those games, but they would have needed to have been more prepared. This schedule needed to start off with the Sanford Bulldogs and then go to Mississippi State, then go to Miami, then go to Texas A&M, because your offensive line needed time to get things going. Your offensive line needs to gel through and through. They don't just gel in practice. They need time to gel. And if you give them a chance to gel versus Sanford, versus Mississippi State, now they can have a groove going. They can get to know who each other is, who's got what strengths and who's got what weaknesses and where I need to fill in for him, how I can help my teammate out here and there. And they didn't do that. They popped right off with Miami. Miami probably prepared a lot better than the Florida Gators did. I don't know that I can say I'm surprised. Mario Cristobal seems to have just more experience than Napier in general as a player, as a coach. I can't say I'm shocked by that, but I do believe that this Gator team, the roster, there are athletes on this roster, but I don't think these athletes are ready to play like a team. I don't think these athletes are playing like a team yet. I think that's pretty clear. It shows on the tape. It shows in the game every single time they line up. Every single time they lace them up, you can see it. It's glaring. Graham Mertz with 19 of 21 for 201 yards, 3 tutties. DJ Lagway was 7 of 7 for 76 yards, no tutties. And now look, Lagway, perfect percentage. That's awesome. That's great. But he had 7 attempts. You could have got him those 7 attempts in the fourth quarter after letting Mertz put this game away. Mertz got things rolling. I mean, I would like Mertz to have had at least 30 attempts in this game. Get him rolling. Get him rolling. Because next week, the Gators are off next week, but then they play UCF. They are going to need Mertz. I'm telling you, they're going to need everything he's got. They're going to need everything he's got. And I don't think you can really afford to be going back and forth between those two guys this season. But like I said, Napier is not doing this, in my wholehearted opinion. I don't think he's doing this because it's better for the team. DJ didn't really do anything to help the team today. Couple drives, couple conversions, that's nice. But Mertz is a 6-year senior. And just in my last video, now I'm keeping a G. I'm not going to sit here and say this just because Mertz had one good game. He's a 6-year senior. He's got more experience. He's the one you got to ride with. You got to ride with him. I would love to go with DJ Lagway, but if you go with Lagway, you need to stick with Lagway. Period and point blank. You go with him, you got to stick with him. All this going back and forth right now is good for him for next season, but it's not really doing anything for the Florida Gators right now. And upon Billy Napier getting fired, I really would not be surprised if DJ Lagway leaves, because the coach who they're going to unceremoniously fire gave him run, gave him an opportunity. So let's say Napier gets fired and he's an offensive coordinator somewhere else. You don't think that he's going to try to have a conversation with Lagway on some, hey, man, listen, I'm going over here to TCU. I want you to come with me. You don't think that might be a part of his pitch, of how he pitches himself to whatever place he's going to pitch himself, to have an interview? Listen, I've already talked to some of the players. Lagway's interested. He's willing to come with me. Because it doesn't make any sense for him to be going back and forth. He's a freshman. How is he looking over his shoulder? He's a freshman. He's a freshman who came to a school with a 6-year senior. There's a lot of freshmen who sit. Granted, I know this is a year in college football where we're seeing Jeremiah Smith and, Ryan Williams and all these freshmen who are just balling right off the jump. But there are a ton of freshmen who sit and wait. DJ can learn a lot on the sideline, watching Graham. He can learn what to do, what not to do. I think that is where he should be. I think that is what he should be doing. He should be waiting his turn. He should be getting in the third and in the fourth quarter. He should be getting in with a package that's set for him. Not just the same package that you got for Graham Mertz. Because if that's the case, then it's one size fits all. Is that the offense that you're running? That's not how it works. When Urban Meyer was coaching the Florida Gators and they had Chris Leak was all world passing quarterback. Nobody threw a prettier ball than Chris Leak. Still to this day, I don't know who throws a prettier ball than Chris Leak. But when they put Tim Tebow in there, he had a different package. He was not running the same package as Chris Leak. He had a different package and everybody knew it. The defense knew that they were about to see something different. So them going back and forth between Chris Leak and Tim Tebow would throw the defense off naturally because you know you're about to get something different and you don't know what to expect. All of a sudden, Tim's running. He's running. Power lead. Whoa, jump pass. Different package. That's not Chris Leak's package. So I think the going back and forth, I think, is just a sign that Billy Napier doesn't know what to do except for kind of throw everything he's got at the wall, see what sticks. That's what I'm seeing here. Let's continue, right? I want to talk about where I think the Gators' clear weakness is to me now. Now, they still lost the time of possession battle, 32 minutes to 27 minutes, 32 minutes to 28 minutes. So Mississippi State dominated the time of possession, even in a game that they lost. And that's actually a great segue to my next point. The Gators' weakness is their defense. I'm not sure if it's the defensive line or if it's the defensive backs. I'm not sure if it's the linebackers, but defensive line or defensive back. The linebackers are essentially an extension of your defensive line and an extension of your defensive backs. They need to be able to cover, to support your defensive backs, and they need to be able to attack that first line of defense and that second line of defense. They need to be able to run stop. They need to be able to blitz. So they are an extension. But I'm not sure where the weakness is. From coaching on down, I'm not sure who it is. One thing I can say for certain is the Gators don't have a leader on their defensive side of the ball. They don't have a leader on their defensive side. They do not have a leader on the defensive side of the ball. Now, on the offensive side of the ball, you can say for certain the Gators have ballers. They got a couple ballers on the offensive side of the ball, even guys you don't know who can just come on in and make big plays. The Gators have a stacked backfield. They got at least 3 running backs who can really tote the ball. They got some wide receivers who are coming up out of nowhere, and you can kind of see that, wow, oh, who is this? DK, Mizell. These guys making big plays, okay? Awfully consistent, right? Now, when we talk about defense, I don't know who to talk about. None of these guys are making standout plays to where they are the clear-cut leader on that defense or where they are clear-cut run stopper, clear-cut pass defender. None of them. Not a single one of them. I can't count how many plays this defense has allowed. It's scary. It's scary. And, you know, the tough thing is in college football, teams put up a lot of points. When they score, it's flashy, it's big, it's deep passes, long runs. So it's easy to look at the Gators and say their offense isn't doing that and to say, oh, it's Graham Mertz's fault. It's the offensive coordinator's fault. But you need to be able to stop people too. I do believe in college football, the best defense is a great offense, but you need a good defense. You need a defense that can get stops. Because if your defense is on the field last, because the other team just knows how to run the ball and they can dominate on that side of the ball, they can really dominate in the time possession game, then your defense is the one that's going to be responsible for getting stops, not your offense. Your defense is going to be the one that's responsible for getting the offense the ball. For the Gators to lose the time of possession battle, that means Mississippi State is on the field longer than the Gators is, which means the Gators defense is not stopping the Mississippi State Bulldogs. So inherently, that means that Mississippi just keeps on getting first downs. They keep on churning it away. I mean, when it comes to first downs, Mississippi State had 30 first downs. The Gators had 29. Total plays, Mississippi State, 89. The Gators, 64. Mississippi State was able to punt the ball 5 times to the Gators 2 times, and they still had an opportunity to win this game. Now, the Gators did get that stop on 4th down when Mississippi State had an opportunity. I think it was right after the 3rd quarter. They had an opportunity to make it a 1-score game. But Mississippi State, they gave that away. They hadn't run a speed option the entire game, and all of a sudden, it's the one play that they call. Didn't look like they were that prepared for it. The Gators were ready for it. On that play, they were ready for it. But it had been working for Mississippi State to go right down the middle of the field. They got stopped a couple times in a row because the Gators knew what was coming. And so they were going for it on 4th down again, and it didn't work out for them. But the Gators aren't getting any stops, not with regularity. For the fact, the clear fact that it was a game lets you know where they are. Getting this win, it puts a little bit of that perfume on you. It gives you a little bit of perfume going into next week. And that's going to be good for Billy Napier for the sake of just not hearing so much of that noise. But the musk is clear. It's everywhere. I can smell it. I can see it. If they were able to get more stops, if the Gators were able to get more takeaways, they would be a better team as a whole because the offense would be able to get more possessions. They would be able to get more attempts, more opportunities to make bigger plays, to score again, to stretch the lead, to milk the clock. But they're not getting those opportunities because they're constantly watching their defense play. They're constantly watching their defense give up another first down. The Gators do not stop the run. Let me tell you. And in this game, oddly enough, they're giving up both 240 in the passing and rushing, but they're not stopping the run either. The Gators don't stop the run. They don't stop the pass. All right, I'm going to look up a stat here just to back up what I'm saying. Of the 134 teams, Gators are ranked 102nd in rush defense. The Gators' next opponent is UCF. UCF is the second-ranked team in rushing offense. That's not a good look. It's not a good look. That's what they love to do. They love to run the ball, and the Gators cannot stop the run. And let me tell you something. As far as the next game goes, the Gators get this week off, which is big. They can use it. But as far as this next game goes, this is the kind of game that no one in the country or in the state of Florida would expect the Gators to lose. UCF has never been one of the top-tier programs in college football, let alone in Florida. And as of this year, they kind of seem like they're changing the way you see their program. If UCF pulls off this victory, that would topple Florida sports forever. Before I end this video, I want to talk about who my favorites are for Billy Napier's replacement. Because if the Gators lose to UCF, it's going to throw the whole program in flux. The program has already been in trouble for years. They've already been a failing program for years now. If they lose to UCF, they might not recover for another 5 to 10 years. Because at that point, athletes can start seeing UCF and USF as a program where if the NIL deal is good enough, why do I need to go to UF? I might as well stay here at UCF and continue doing what's happening now in this generation. Yeah, I know the Gators were good back then, but in this generation, it's UCF. USF has a chance today when they play Miami. I cannot wait for that game. That's going to be a great one. Really good game. I think USF is going to really compete. I think they will compete. I don't think they'll get the win. Another important stat. Of those 134 teams, the Gators are ranked 101st in their rushing offense, and UCF's rush defense is ranked 10th. You can't make this shit up. You cannot make this shit up. And the Gators are going to try to run the ball as much as possible. They force feed their backs. They got some great backs, but that O-line is struggling. The O-line, the D-line, and the secondary is where I feel like this team has some of their glaring weaknesses. Passing defense. Now, this is where the Gators are going to be in a favorable position. Passing defense-wise, of these 134 teams, UCF is ranked 95th, but the Gators are ranked 92nd. Passing offense-wise, UCF is ranked 93rd. Florida is ranked 39th. So if the Gators come out ready to throw the ball aggressively, that is where they can actually put pressure on UCF. But when it comes down to how UCF is going to come at the Florida Gators, they're going to run the ball. And I'm going to go out on a limb right now and say that UCF is going to win this game. 2 weeks. The Gators got 2 weeks. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say that the UCF Golden Knights will win this game. Gus Malzahn has more experience as a head coach than Billy Napier. He's more successful than Billy Napier. And UCF being an underdog, they're going to want to get this win. They're going to want to get this win badly. This game will be played at the Swamp. The Gators haven't really protected the Swamp. Let's be real. They lost to the Hurricanes at the Swamp. They lost to the Aggies at the Swamp. I'm telling you right now, heads are going to spin. Heads are going to spin. The reason why I'm telling you right now that I think UCF will win is not just because they love to run the ball and they dominate when it comes to running the ball, but also because the Gators don't stop the run. Also because the Gators defense don't take pride in winning their matchups. Not the D-line, not the DBs. They seem like they'd love to get an interception if it falls in their lap, if they get the opportunity and it's just an overthrown ball, but they don't seem ready for those opportunities. Even in the Mississippi State game, the quarterback went deep on a play that he should not have gone deep because their receiver was bracketed, and he threw it into double, triple coverage. The DB still couldn't make the play. The ball went right to him. He still couldn't make the play, and I think that's because they're not really prepared to make those kinds of plays. The defensive coordinator, Billy Napier, their coaches aren't getting them ready to make those kinds of plays. And the guys aren't either. The guys can absolutely take it up to themselves. They could absolutely take it upon themselves to prepare themselves to be hungry for those kinds of plays, to make those kinds of plays. But they aren't doing that. This team lacks an identity on defense more than they lack an identity on offense. That's the truth, because some defenses help you win, either by scoring, either by taking the ball away, or just by keeping the defensive players off the field and giving their offense more opportunities to make plays. If your defense can keep you off the field, your offense will have a chance to make plays. Couldn't keep Texas A&M off the field, couldn't keep Miami off the field. Both of those teams got to do whatever the hell they wanted to do. We struggled with Samford early on, still didn't get many takeaways. We got a takeaway in this game, a fumble that was lost, but we didn't actually take it away when it comes to interceptions. We don't take pride in that type of stuff. We don't. This Gators football team doesn't. But taking pride, that's a completely different theory, a completely different approach, a completely different philosophy. I think the Gators defense isn't doing much to scheme against whatever team they're playing against. Because playing against a Cam Ward or a Marcel Reed with the Aggies, what was our game plan? Were we just going to line up 3-4, 4-3, 4-2-5? Were we just going to line up and just go our 11 versus their 11 and see whose 11 is better? Or were we going to prepare for the fact that those two quarterbacks are running quarterbacks and we need to have a guy watching those quarterbacks every single play? We need to have a spy watching Cam Ward, a spy watching Marcel Reed. I didn't notice one. I didn't see one. What's the scheme? What's the plan? What's the approach every single game? How do you prepare every single game? Do you just run your guys down the field, make them run gashers and tell them that this is what they need to do to prepare? They need to be disciplined and so on and so forth. Do you just make them watch film? Or do you have a different scheme for every single game because every single team you play against is different and has different strengths? What's the plan? What's the play? Texas A&M is not the Miami Hurricanes, but we made them look like that. Mississippi State should not have been that close, but we made them look like they are a better team than they really are. All right, look, before I get out of here, I want to talk about some names. I've been hearing a lot of people float out a lot of names as far as who they think should be the next head coach when Billy Napier is gone. One of the names that I'm hearing the most is Lane Kiffin. I'm going to just say, at least on this channel, I'm not going to promote that. You know, the only reason why I think he would do it, if he has that kind of ego, the kind of ego that would want to be promoted as or seen as the guy who turned this failing program around. For that reason, I can see him possibly doing it, but he doesn't need the Florida Gators. The Florida Gators need him. So he might, maybe the Gators just, it's an offer he can't refuse. They pitch him something that's so crazy because, you know, they got it. They were willing to do it for Napier. You know, and I am hearing that, donors and boosters have already gotten the money together to let Billy Napier go. They've already gotten the $28 million that they would need to pay him so that he can walk. I'll just say that Lane Kiffin is more so a dream that I think we need to wake up from that. And I think we need to look at people that are more so in the lane of offensive coordinator who can make that leap, or a head coach who's at a school where they might have already reached their ceiling. I have 7 names and a coach that is outside of the box who's an interim coach. A lot of you are not going to like that idea. A lot of you are going to say that I'm crazy for saying this person's name, but that will be the last name that I say. Okay, I'm going to start off with a head coach who I think has hit his ceiling. I think his team has hit his ceiling. I don't think his team will be any more successful than they've already been. I think he would be crazy to leave his situation, but I think he would be the kind of guy who could turn the Florida football program around. And that is Dan Lanning at Oregon. I think Dan Lanning at Oregon would be perfect for the Florida Gators. This man has an edge to him. He's a grinder. I would not be surprised if some of the players at Oregon would want to leave and come to the University of Florida. I think he would bring something to the University of Florida that they have not had in years. Dan Lanning, to me, I see Urban Meyer. I see a different kind of approach to that, though. I think he's a bit more grounded in a sense. I think Urban is a bit more bullish, and Dan Lanning is a bit more presentable than Urban is, a bit more professional than Urban is, but I think he's got great relationships with his players, and it shows on the field. It shows on the field. It shows when he has press conferences. I think he would turn that program around. All right, now, the next 5 names are offensive coordinators. First name I have here is Will Stein at Oregon. The Oregon offense has been one to behold for quite a few years. Granted, they had Bo Nix there, but I think that your offensive coordinator spends a ton of time with your quarterback, a ton of time. So I would love to get an offensive coordinator around a guy like Graham Mertz or DJ Lagway who can preach the system, who can preach timing, who can preach anticipation. Oregon has been home to some successful quarterback play, even when the quarterback has not really been the best player on the team at times. So I think that's one of the first hires. That's one of the first interviews. The first place I'm going, I should have named this person first, but I wrote these names out the way that I wrote them out. Chip Kelly at Ohio State. Florida would be the biggest school where he ever got a chance to coach at. He's very successful at Oregon. Spent some time in the NFL, so he's spent time around guys who are getting paid. Slightly successful, but failed on that level too. I think that's important. And now, as the offensive coordinator for the Ohio State Buckeyes, he's on a completely different level. The Gators could have competed with Miami. They have the players. They don't have the mindset. They don't know that they could have competed. They really don't know. They're lacking an edge that you get from coaching on down. Next name I'm going to is Garrett Riley. Garrett Riley, offensive coordinator at Clemson. They just started rolling and almost put up 50 points in the first half against NC State, who was ranked at the start of this season. Garrett Riley, brother of Lincoln Riley, offensive family, offensive minded. I don't know how he's going to do as a defensive coach, but if you can hire the right guys, then that's not your focus. That's not necessarily your job to focus on that. You oversee everything, but also someone who can speak to an entire team and get people going in a way that these young men need. A lot of these guys are making NIL money. A lot of these guys are making more money than the coaches. So for a lot of these guys, they just feel like they just got to show up. They still going to get their check. They still going to get their check. So because they still going to get that money, it's like, yo, whatever, bro. And if it doesn't work out for me here, I'll go somewhere else. So let's be real. A lot of these guys, they're on a different level now, financially speaking, which can almost make some of them not grind the way they once would. Next place I'm going to, Andy Kolenicki, Penn State. Got some guys over there who is making him look good as well. Penn State's offense looks better than it ever did. They are dangerous. All right. The Jayhawks went from being one of the worst offenses in the FBS to top 20 under Kolenicki. This is the Jayhawks. These are all guys who, unlike Napier, are on a much higher level, offensive-mindedly speaking. Napier being at Louisiana Lafayette, I'm not coming for that school in a way where like I'm trying to disrespect them, but you know, that is not a top football program, and it never has been, right? It never has been. Every single guy who I just named is at a top school in their conference. Let alone in their state, right? Penn State, Clemson, Ohio State, Oregon. Next, Kyle Flood, offensive line coach at Texas. The Gators offensive line has been weak for years. Listen, if you have a good offensive line, you're going to succeed in ways that you can't really quantify just on paper. You know, you don't really see the offensive line stats on paper. They don't put that in the stats. You don't see how many pancakes guys got or how many times they gave the quarterback more than 3 seconds to throw the ball. You don't really see that. What you do see is great stats from the quarterback, great stats from every single one of the runners. Texas has one of the best offensive lines. Texas has one of the best offenses. They run the ball. They throw the ball. I doubt that Kyle Flood would come to the University of Florida because him and Steve Sarkisian have been like this since like for years now, all right? For like 4 or 5 years. They They're kind of coming as a package. And that's great for Steve Sarkisian, man. You need your support. You know, when your guys leave and they go off and start doing other things, it really hurts that head coach to have to start re-recruiting coaches as well as players. But he's somebody that I would want to bring in to interview, no doubt. You don't hire everyone you interview, but I'd love to bring them in. A lot of these offensive coordinators they're liable to take the head coaching position because they haven't had that opportunity. Last but not least, this name is very unpopular, wildly unpopular, but I would bring him in for an interview. These next two names are going to be a bit outside of the box, but I would bring them in. John Gruden, I'd bring him in. He's been on the bench for quite a while. People don't talk offense like John Gruden. I would bring him in. People don't have an edge like John Gruden. I would bring him in. One thing is for certain is the ball players who come through his system, if he's the coach at the University of Florida, will be prepared to play in the NFL. And I think that's one hell of a recruiting pitch. And my last person that I would be bringing in as an interim coach, okay, I don't mean this for a long-lasting coach. This is the name I would bring in if you fire Billy Napier this year, okay? And you don't even need to bring him in as a head coach. You could probably just bring him in as a motivational coach. But if you fire Billy Napier this year, I bring this guy in. Call me crazy. Say whatever you want to. Judge me. I don't care. But I haven't been able to get this idea out of my head for a week. Tim Tebow. Bring him in. Bring in Tim Tebow. Let Tim Tebow speak to these young men Monday through Monday. They're getting the wrong kind of energy. They're getting the wrong kind of advice. Billy Napier is trying to tell people what the schedule is going to be. We're going to work out at 5. We're going to come hit the field, we're going to come hit the field, work out in the field, and then we're going to go watch tape. And then that's Billy Napier, just giving these numbers. He's a coordinator, schedule coordinator as far as I'm concerned. But these young men got to be inspired in a different kind of way, in a spiritually, philosophically way. Tim does not need to be the play caller, but he needs to get and tap into their spirit. I believe the O-line would start moving people out the motherfucking way if you bring Tim Tebow in there to start talking to these young men. And I mean like on a regular basis. It can't just be a quick, I say bring him in on a motivational thing, but that's too quick. He's in and out. These guys can forget like this. One bad play, one bad penalty, and they can forget that whole speech that they just heard from Tim Tebow. They can forget because it's not who they are internally. Bring him in. Bring him in. Let him talk to those guys at halftime. I'm telling you, from the edge factor, just from the factor of deciding to win my matchup, he'll bring that side out of him. He would bring that out of him because I'm telling you, they didn't even compete against Miami. They didn't even compete, dog. They didn't even compete, and they could have competed. They could have really made that a much better game, a game where they take it down to the wire and maybe lose by a field goal or win by one. I'm telling you, everybody played better because of him. Everybody played better because of Tim. The defense played better because of Tim. The offensive line played better because of Tim. I'd bring him in as my interim coach. I would let his energy rub off on these young men. And I'm telling you, there would be a spirit, a renewed kind of motivation pumping through the blood of those young athletes and pumping through the University of Florida like it ain't been for 15 plus years. So listen, man, come from me all you want to. I don't care. But listen, I'm glad for the Gators to get this win. I really do wish that this would have been the third win of the season, maybe even 4. With the right coach, you're getting 4 wins out this season. All right. You notice how the Chiefs have constantly been in these close games, but they've been pulling out these wins that just seem like they're supposed to lose, but they've been pulling it out. It's good coaching. They might lose this next game on Sunday, but it's good coaching. Good coaching helps you get that edge when sometimes you just need that little bit. Sometimes it's the players on the field, sometimes it's the coach, but at the end of the day, everybody got to come together. It's got to be a collaborative effort. But look, glad that they got this dub. They get the week off, thankfully, so they can get their together. And then in 2 weeks, they play UCF at the Swamp. Listen, go Gators. I hope they get that dub. I don't think they will. And I think that loss right there, they lose to UCF, it's over. It's over. People, heads are going to spin. The whole state of Florida is going to lose it. The whole state of Florida is going to be in a completely different mind state because they're going to be confused at the fact that the Gators could lose to UCF. They will be confused, right? All right, y'all. Thanks for watching. If you got to this point of the video, I appreciate it. I'd appreciate it even more if you decided to subscribe. How nice of you. Look at you hitting that button. That's so kind of you. Would appreciate it even more if you shared this with somebody.